Welcome back. It is Jonny Yusef from Propane Fitness.
Hi there.
Hello.
Just stop always messing up.
Messing up the start. Today we are going to talk about relationships 103. We have done 2 very successful episodes that I think have helped a lot of people, or at the very least, helped us understand our own stance on relationships.
Good feedback on relationship.
Pardon?
It's ended a relationship.
It ended a relationship. So I got a message from someone, I won't say who.
Careful.
I got a message from a girl on Twitter saying that after she watched one of the relationships podcasts, she decided to finish a relationship she'd been unhappy in for a long time and was now 4 weeks hence and feeling liberated and better for it. So congratulations.
Instagram funnel.
Exactly. So today we're actually, speaking of ending relationships, we're getting to the darker parts, I think, of relationships. We're going to talk about cheating, how to get over someone, and how to end relationships. It's quite a murky world, this one, isn't it? We're down into the depths now, where all of the fish have got long teeth and they've got those little angular things that come off the top.
Globe and the teeth that come like this.
Yeah. And one of the worst things is that all of us have got really terrible
stories about this.
Brilliant / terrible, however you would like to look at it, indeed. Yeah. So, I think we left off last time kind of trying to work out how to establish a good relationship and move it forward. But obviously, doesn't matter how well you try and start things off, inevitably relationships do sometimes go awry. Mm-hmm. And certainly in my experience, in relationships, the beginning of, for me, the first realization that there's something wrong is when sexual interest starts to wane. So for me, that's like the first warning signal. Like as soon as that starts, I'm like, oh man, like I'm not being interested, I'm not being challenged, I'm just not as bothered.
I would say when sexual interest starts to wane, that's the sugary coating to the relationship, and it reveals any underlying malformations with the way that you've come together, and it makes it more obvious because there's no longer any sugar coating to make that better. And there was 2 themes that you mentioned in 102 about when you meet someone and you have slightly misaligned values, and as you grow together, those trajectories will move further and further apart. And then when they get to breaking point, then there's a natural progression, which is breaking up. And the other thing was about tolerating things, or what was the word you used? Like keeping someone right, or...
Yeah, drawing lines in the sand.
Yeah, having those boundaries. And if you don't set them early on, over time, as the sugar coating starts to dissolve...
Yeah, that's kind of right, isn't it? You get kind of like compounding interest on differences between the two of you, or it's like the trajectory of a rocket ship. Like if you're 1% off at the start, by the time you get to the moon, you're actually like 100,000 miles apart from each other.
And it's like you're holding a rope, and you both just start walking in the desert.
Yeah,
like a stretchy rope, let's say.
Long one.
Some
elastic.
Yeah, and you both just start walking together. You think you're walking parallel, but over time you start realizing you're both walking like that,
drifting apart.
And then eventually the rope pulls more and more and more, and you either allow it to pull yourselves together and you realign your values together, or you carry on stubbornly going your own way until...
Or you see someone else who's holding a bit of rope and think, fancy a bit of that rope while I'm holding this one. And then before you know it, you've got hold of 5 bits of rope.
Well, that's when you're trying to hold on to one, and you just lean over and get the other one. And then hoping they don't notice, but they can see that you're holding on to 2 ropes.
I know.
And then you've got one in your mouth, and then you've got like...
I don't think we need to talk about what we've got in our mouth.
Not yet.
Yeah,
Relationships 104.
That's 104. That's available on a members-only website.
What to and what not to put in your mouth.
Quite certain requirements for that.
So. Exactly. So, yeah, I think... Should we start with cheating in a relationship? Because we've still got the relationship at this point.
Mm-hmm. We're still in the relationship.
This imaginary relationship that's had a million different timelines.
We should probably say then, like if you're watching this and you haven't seen 101 and 102, these move in chronological order from
God's sake.
For bloody hell. I mean, why are you watching 103 before you've watched 102 and 101?
It's because I think 103's got better stuff in. I always do that. I always watch like
skip
part
ahead.
2.
Well, you've bought an iPhone X, not an iPhone 1, haven't you? Fair enough, whatever. So... Cheating in a relationship, a couple of things that I'd like to kind of mention straight off is that there's certainly been times where I've been my infidelities in relationships haven't been massive, but they have been, they've existed. And one of the main reasons that I've done it, I think, is to kind of protect myself. I've kidded myself into believing that if I cheat in a relationship, that somehow gives me some sort of power, or if I've got some insecurities about the way that the other person feels about me, it almost comforts me and kind of pads those out, gives it an artificial sense of inflation where I'm not as bothered, like, because I've slept with someone else, so I'm not really that arsed. But all that you're doing there is you're just papering over cracks of a problem which are going to get worse. And in fact, actually, you're just driving a wedge into them, because if you're concerned about how you feel about someone, sleeping with someone else is a pretty surefire way of beginning to...
So are you saying cheating, whenever you have cheated, it's been a political move, or is it just that it's unconscious behaviour that then, as you think about it, it's like, oh, maybe I did that so that I can distance myself from it without...
Yeah, I think in retrospect, I'm not really too sure at the time. At the time, it's quite sort of primal and...
Tits and that.
Yeah, tits and shagging and that. But yeah, I think it feels like an insurance policy somehow against being hurt.
But it's interesting. So have you...
It makes sense. Like, yeah.
Have you both cheated on people before?
Yes.
I've never cheated on someone.
I have.
Okay.
So I never viewed it in the way that you viewed it. That feels very, like, a step away from the situation. It's like, here's the situation happening. I'm going to go in another room and think about it, and then come back in and make a decision. I feel like mine was always like, this situation's kind of doesn't feel as good as it used to, so I'm looking for the next one. If that makes sense.
Oh, so you were prospecting?
I think so.
So that's a different motivation then, isn't it? That's like, I'm unhappy in this, but I'm not doing it as an insurance policy to feel better about this relationship. I'm just looking for a new rope to hold on to.
So I think actually I think the reason why most people cheat is that they believe that the sugary coating is the
thing to chase.
Yeah. And so like I also think that every relationship has a fixed trajectory. So like there's this, you'll encounter the same problems now, like in the relationship you're in now, than in as you will in the one that you move into by cheating. Assuming that most people, like they're married, for example, they cheat on their partner and then end up in a relationship with the person they cheated on, thinking that they will never experience the problems that they had with that person. But actually they're just starting again. And in 2 years' time...
Probably on a worse premise as well, because you've then started a relationship as an affair.
Well, see, so the one way to know for sure that the person that you're with will cheat on you...
Has the capacity to cheat.
...is because you met them by cheating on someone and they were cheating on someone.
There's a meme floating around that says, if he cheats with you, he'll cheat on you.
Well, like that, I don't think that's an unfair thing to say as well. Like past behaviour is usually...
Fucking obviously.
Predictive.
Fucking obviously.
Yeah. So, yeah.
No, I'm different now. I've changed. I'm a better person. You know.
So that said, though, I think having cheated on someone before, I now realise how just utterly pointless it is. Like it is hyperbolic discounting at its biggest, most insidious form.
I've got a cramp and it flipping naps.
Where is it?
In my foot. Thanks, Jonny.
Is it going?
Yeah.
Great.
Thank God for that.
Well, I'm glad that we featured that. So, yeah, the hyperbolic discounting thing is from 101, and you mentioned it in that, so you need to go back and watch it, yeah?
For heaven's sake.
So, I totally agree. There's kind of like a product life cycle.
Exactly.
And then you've got like intro, growth, maturity, and then as it begins to tail off, all that you're doing is just starting again.
Yeah. And actually, I think some of the best parts of a relationship are accessed only after you've gone through that period of time.
Through the lull and then it goes into maturity.
It's a lull if you choose it to be a lull. It's a lull if you think like so back into my analogies of like treating a relationship as an asset. Like people think that a relationship happens to them. And then when the relationship stops working, they think, oh, well, the relationship stopped working, so I need to go and find a new one. Rather than the relationship's not working, why don't I invest more time in the relationship to try and make this relationship better? It's like you put all this work in, finding this person, building a relationship with them, having all these experiences with them, and then as soon as sexual interest or whatever goes, a lot of people, myself included, at one point have gone, fuck this, I'm off. Rather than, actually, why don't I just double down on this and see if I can fix the problem?
It's like a startup cost or a fixed overhead to a relationship, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because at the beginning, everybody needs to do the same things. You need to meet the parents. You need to work out where they live. You need to work out their schedule. You need to try and align yours with theirs. And there is a
administrative headache.
It's a nightmare. It's a bloody nightmare.
To have to repeat that just for the sake of novelty is a bit. So we got criticised last time for, I think it was your analogy of the second-hand car market in relationships. And actually, this,
despite the fact that it's entirely accurate.
Well,
I will fight to the death anyone who thinks that that's not right.
it was like, oh, you're commodifying women. It's like, no,
Men and
you're
women.
assuming.
Yeah, we're talking about that. We're talking about men and
Works
women.
in both directions.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
In all directions.
All directions, yeah. It's not bi-directional.
Yeah. Don't put me in a box, Chris.
that was Video Dean that looked over and listened.
For anyone who's listening, you will notice there is a discrepancy about whether Video Man Dean is called Video Man Dean or Video Guy Dean. So we've decided that we're now non-binary and we're name fluid. So
no preferred pronoun, Dean.
No, yes.
Video person or videos. So this curve of,
I feel like you're making light of it.
It's a very serious. It's a very serious problem.
I'm fully serious. So
I tell you all.
I'll tell you. So this curve. If you were to buy a decent car to begin with,
Yeah.
now, and your plan is to keep it for 50 years, you would spend some time looking for a good car. You wouldn't get a cheap rubbish one.
Yeah.
You would then invest in it. You treat it well, so that in 30 years' time or 50 years' time, it becomes a vintage car or it becomes a classic car. Rather than if you got a rubbish one that has no prospect of becoming a classic car in the future, then yeah, you're going to have to keep hopping between cars and finding new ones.
Did I use my shoe analogy
No.
last time? I remember reading
What's the shoe analogy?
Lay it on
So
us.
the shoe analogy, someone's going to get upset again. So imagine if I said, so this is very Tim Ferriss. So imagine you're going traveling, single backpack, and you can take with you one pair of shoes, and that pair of shoes has to be comfortable to walk in. Yeah, it has to be appropriate for if you're smartly dressed. You have to be able to go to the gym in them. Like, you would pick a fucking good pair of shoes. Yeah. Like, you would spend a lot of time weighing up the pros and costs of all the different pairs of shoes. In relationships, what a lot of people do is see the flimsy high heel and think, I'm going to buy them. And
because they look nice.
They work in one specific area of your life, or they maybe match one specific situation or one side of your personality. But actually, when you want to go for a walk on Sunday morning, they're never going to work.
Or a pair of lifters.
Lifting
shoes.
I saw a video the other day of a guy walking, I can't remember where it was. He was just like walking along the street in a pair of squat shoes. So like, that's a man who bought the wrong pair of shoes.
He bought the wrong shoes. I bet his relationships are terrible as well.
Yeah.
It's awful in relationships.
So like in the same amount, like if you
not fit for purpose.
Yeah, you're buying this pair of shoes, like you're investing in this situation that like you're going to be with that person on holiday, like in the house when there's nothing to do, in all these different situations. So you better make sure that it's a good
agree.
So that's buying a Volvo, isn't it? Knowing that it's going to last you.
So to go on
Volvo
to
with a turbo and some nice exhausts.
it's tuned.
Neons.
It's well tuned, isn't it? So the cheating side of things, why do you think people cheat in relationships? Why do you think men cheat first?
I think it's the belief that novelty will cure the problem that they're experiencing or the feeling that they're experiencing, whether that is lack of connection, lack of engagement, feeling unhappy with the person. So like something happens in the relationship, the existing novelty by definition wears off because it's no longer novel. And we are in a society whereby you are constantly aware of other options in relationships. So walking down the street on Instagram, Facebook, whatever, like there's
Tinder.
In a more direct sense. But even if you're not in like a dating market, you're still presented with
Window shopping.
Hundreds and hundreds of different people who are single, who are sort of advertising their life, as it were, on social media. And so to try and tell yourself, whether this is in a relationship or anything for that matter, like the decision I've made is the best decision and I'm happy with that, and no alternative is possibly better, when you are in a situation that you are feeling doubtful of and it's the sort of the shine's gone off it, and suddenly there's an opportunity placed in front of you and you think that novelty that is appealing, people then tend to make a short-term decision.
I think we're signalling again off hotness rather than beauty to a degree as well. If you remember the analogy from 102, people are using that as a gauge of, well, this is potentially more beautiful because there's a novelty bias and a recency bias as well, and all the other cognitive biases that we
so hot
fall
is
prey to.
like some Jimmy Choos. Beautiful is like a nice pair of nanos, or like that could be worn in loads of different situations.
I get that.
Like they're really nice, but they're not quite as glitzy.
Yeah, I get that. Why do you think
Good
women?
old pair of Merrills. Yeah.
Yeah, man. There probably would be some cat boots.
Yeah.
Why do you think women cheat, Yusuf?
So there's a few psychologists that have formalized what Johnny's just said there, which is the stereotype that men will cheat for physical or sexual novelty, and women cheat because they feel unloved, and that the primary driver of men's motivation in a relationship is respect, and for women it's love. And if they don't feel like they're receiving that respective thing, then they'll start to be unhappy in the relationship and want to leave. There's an interesting study which looks at asking people who are in partnerships, what would be worse for you if your partner was having great sex with someone else, or if your partner was deeply in love with someone else?
It's like what on one side it was they didn't care about them but were having good sex, and on the other side didn't ever touch them but sent very meaningful messages and cared about them deeply.
Yeah, exactly. So those two kind of opposites on the spectrum. And men would always say, or in general would say, I prefer if my partner was deeply in love with someone else but didn't touch them, and women would prefer the opposite. So I think that's quite interesting with the way that we're wired and the way that we...
Say that again. What do men prefer?
So men would prefer if their partner was in love with someone else, rather than if they were having great sex with someone else but it was meaningless.
I think that just harks back.
I really can't decide.
Really? I think I would... I'm probably part of that stereotype.
You'd prefer that they were in love?
Yeah. Even though it's illogical, because that's harder to...
Remedy.
Yeah.
In this situation right now, it's easy for me to rationalize, but the juvenile ego inside of me, I know how visceral and how stomach punching it is when you don't feel like you're good enough. And there's nothing that you can do to stop, to want that feeling to just fuck the fuck off.
So visceral, like Aubrey Marcus was talking about when his wife first had sex with someone else and he started this polyamorous relationship, that he spent a lot of the time like dry retching on all fours, just like...
Yeah.
Great one, Aubrey.
Insane.
Great one, mate.
Have that with your salt in the water. Salt water in the
Fucking
morning.
bone broth on the morning, mate. Yeah, enjoy that while you...
Have that with your
wife's getting leathered all over by some 21-year-old from Austin, Texas. Jesus.
While you're sniffing your
Rosemary
incense
oil,
candle, trying to be productive.
Walking on bare grass. Fuck off, Aubrey.
Writing a book that's really misleading and lures you in to begin with, thinking, actually, Aubrey, this might be alright, and then you get about 20 pages into the work.
Oh my god.
Bunch of bollocks.
He's throwing axes at a plank of wood in the fucking garden.
That's Aubrey solidly never coming on to me.
Never going to get Aubrey, am I?
It is actually, it's okay.
Please come on, Aubrey. So, yeah, I think both of those analyses are very accurate. Like I say, for me, it was kind of like a protectionist strategy. Like
it's a hedge.
It is a hedge, but it wasn't, because a lot of the time I never had any intention of going off with one of the other girls.
Right.
What I was doing was I was using it to protect my own insecurities about about concerns about the partner in my relationship. So it was like, if I've cheated, then at least I've cheated. It's the
I got in there first.
Is it prisoner's dilemma?
Yeah,
No,
it's
like steal or split. Yeah, exactly.
You've stolen first, so they can't.
Yeah,
hurt
you can't steal as much as I've stolen, because I've stolen first.
So it limits your worst case scenario.
Which is, it's a huge fallacy. It's just not true. Like, you think that it's going to somehow hurt less, but the difference is you've robbed yourself of the one thing that you could have held on to, which is the fact that you could have been virtuous. Like, there is nothing... There's no sympathy for anyone in a relationship if you find out that both partners have cheated on each other.
Well, then you're just in a mess, aren't you?
The relationship's ruined once the first partner's cheated.
Absolutely.
Really. Like, once that's done, it's especially if it's withheld from the partner.
Yeah.
I know some people are like, oh, it's brought us closer together because then we became honest with it. But
Fuck off. Anyone who says that you've managed to make a partnership work because one of you's cheated on the other one is chatting shit.
Yeah.
It's rationalizing it to feel better about the whole thing.
Fuck off.
So,
honestly, like you're trying to, you're kidding yourself. You're absolutely kidding
And
yourself.
you could get into with the Marky Orbis. So Sex at Dawn, that book, I haven't read it.
Yep.
But that's he's a big believer in like polyamory and that monogamy isn't
anyone I've read
sustainable.
who's read Sex at Dawn has completely shifted their perspective on polyamory. And
Really?
they're like, oh my god, like I'm never getting married now, and I'm almost scared
also
to read it.
bollocks. Like, so let's look at it from very, very briefly. I've done 2 podcasts with evolutionary psychologists recently. I'll lay a couple of points on you two guys.
Lay them on us.
Female women.
Known.
Female women. Female women. That's a joke from Relationships 101. If you haven't noticed,
A joke that I can't even remember. So
Fine.
don't feel bad if you're thinking.
Oh my god!
I listened to Relationships 101. And
You were
here.
I was here.
You existed anyway.
I might be even said the joke.
Female humans, they don't have visual ovulation. Visual ovulation, is that right? What would it be if like you can't see when a woman's on heat?
I
okay.
see. There's subtle signs, but
Right,
I think
yeah.
we pick up on it.
Yeah, but mostly you
yeah.
can't. It's not the same as like a dog.
With
You know
an
what I mean? It
erection.
gives off pheromones.
Okay.
So anyway, then there is the fact that sex is a very long process for humans compared with other animals.
Not for me.
It's a very long process, and basically all of the things it would appear that human sex has evolved to encourage is pair bonding. That it requires the man to. It's not that easy to get pregnant. Like, you don't know what time of the month it is for her, so you need to continue to have sex. Sex lasts for a while and feels relatively good compared with some other animals as well. And what this leads to is consistent sex, consistent, long, pleasurable sex. And what's the outcome of that? Pair bonding.
Okay.
You have a greater sense of bond between the male and the female.
Okay.
There's a couple of things about the size of testicles are supposed to relate to how promiscuous the females are, because the bigger the testicles, the more semen there is to wash out the man before you. And that's straight from the mouth of Professor William von Hippel.
I've heard. I'm guessing it might have been him that said something similar, where like the glands
Shape of the penis.
So the glands of the penis is shaped, has the corona, the ridge, so that it can.
It's a vacuum. Yeah, so he's seen the
semen as
penis.
well.
There's a penis plunger video, which Video Man Dean, if he can make it work, will be here. Ding. And we're back.
God.
Every time.
I bet he's
it gives
not
me a
gonna do
headache
it.
when
It's
we
just gonna make
all
us
to
live.
leave and come back and go to a different dimension.
Shit the bed. Anyway,
We're putting that YouTube holding bay, don't we? Where are all the other people who've got
PewDiePie's
segmented
over there.
videos?
Yeah, exactly.
PewDiePie.
So,
So a corona exists to scoop other men's sperm
it
out?
creates a vacuum that pulls other semen.
Assuming you're having sex with a woman who's just had sex with someone else.
Assuming you are, I
Still-
think the technical term for that is porridge stirring.
porridge stirring is the clinical term apparently. So,
Great.
That's how it goes.
Lovely image.
So
I've been doing it wrong then, if that's what you're supposed to do.
yeah, man, you got to use a big
2 hands.
Big
Get in
stirrer.
there. Get in there. So yeah, I think the evolutionary justification for cheating aside,
The orgasm as well. The contractions push the semen up into the uterus.
is that right?
Yeah, so up into the ovaries. So like the contractions. So if you make a woman orgasm during sex, supposedly that is a strategy to improve fertility.
So if you're
Pump it
good,
up.
you've won.
Yeah,
So the man's corona's
and if
gonna
you have
do
a more
fuck all.
symmetrical face as a man, you're more likely for your partner to orgasm during sex.
Is that true?
Apparently, that women.
Is that cause or effect?
I don't know how they studied that though,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Fair enough. So yeah, I think you're fairly symmetrical, Johnny.
I'm just checking.
Yeah, you are. You're the same on both sides.
Yeah. Checking for that.
So yeah, it was an insurance policy for me. It was trying to make
Hold
myself.
on. I brought up monogamy. You started talking about coronas and glands and coming, and I don't feel like we made any progress with that.
You know what I mean?
So you.
I think
you said
You said,
about-
I'm going to talk about what Mr. Von Hippel said.
that was it. We spoke about it. The
So-
different elements of sex
So
and
sex
what
is
that
long and pleasurable, and it's happening all the time. And everyone's
encourages
having
pair
sex.
bonding. Yeah.
So
okay.
so therefore monogamy isn't the option, or
Is.
isn't the solution.
What-
Isn't or is
Is
the solution.
yeah.
As far
polyamory
from evolution,
isn't.
Yes.
from evolutionary,
Yeah.
right?
I think it's polyamory to me is one of those things. It's like at the start of this year when I was like, you know what, I'm going to do an hour of meditation every day. That'll be fine. 3 days in,
Fuck.
hell.
Dry retching on the floor
Like,
while your wife's being
and the
nailed
the
by
idea
someone.
that's presented in this book that's convincing everyone, like, I'm sure that it's very convincing. But at some point, you've just got to get down to brass tacks and be in a relationship where you're both sleeping with other people.
Well, so
be
there's
okay with that.
And when we spoke to John Roman Yellow, he lives with 2 women and he's in a triad of a relationship. And the way he described it, it just sounds like a real.
That's a
Difficult
good
thing
podcast
to
to listen
have
to
to
because he is a man who is
He's fully doing.
he is
it.
in a polyamorous relationship with a lesbian couple, and he was like, I understand that this sounds like most straight men's dreams, but trust me, administratively, there's a lot going on.
Because you've instantly, like, with a relationship, there is one thread, one rope.
Yeah.
Instantly.
He's like a man taking 12 dogs for a walk. He's like, I've got so many intricacies in each of those relationships to manage all the time.
Yeah.
And like, by spending more time with one of them, you by definition spending less time with the other. So like, if you're in a relationship now, you're already having those feelings of like, I'm working too much. I'm at the gym, I should be, and then you're like, fucking hell, I'm with partner 1, I should
multiply
be
that
with
by
partner 2.
2.
He must be so productive to even just be able to put the time in.
I think he's a very effective man.
Fine, fair enough. So,
What was the response to your video, the Why Men Cheat as Explained by Family Guy? Did you get many comments?
a lot of people replied, and I think there was one woman who said, "No, it's because they're cheating. They're just cheating ourselves." And I mentioned that the word cheat was in the video. It was in the actual text of the video. It was almost impossible to see the video without reading the word cheat. But I think Why Men Cheat, as explained by Family Guy, is the just novelty bias, isn't it? It's that it doesn't have to be better; it just has to be different. And I think a lot of men and women can kind of agree. Like, it makes sense both logically and it's been reflected in experience.
Yeah, I think, like, although these are stereotypes and they're always kind of easy for mental heuristics to jump to quick conclusions, certainly I've seen women cheat for that reason as well. And, the things with the trends that we talked about with love versus respect and sexual novelty and all this stuff, like, certainly works the other way. And I think the way that female sexual behavior in the last 20 years has become progressively more masculine, or how stereotypically masculine, in that women now become protagonists and the pushers of sex now, in that because there's less of a clear gender role, there's less shame and so on around the whole thing, that now cheating behavior is almost matched as well. So it's an interesting one.
I agree. Moving forward from cheating, I suppose, is how do you end a relationship? Oh, if that's me, I'm going to feel... No, it's Dean.
Like a big poo.
It's definitely Dean.
Do you feel like a big poo, Dean?
Dean doesn't speak.
No.
Dean doesn't speak, does he?
Yeah, I was talking to myself.
How do you end a relationship, and ending a relationship generally?
Or when should you end a relationship?
That's a great question.
So, question 1, when you're cheated on, or when you cheat, should you end a relationship?
God. I
mean,
mean,
so you're going to sell it £7 in an hour.
Yeah. 720 now. I think the thing that we brought up before about if anybody claims that someone cheating on them brought them closer together in a relationship, they're chatting shit. It can only make things worse. I do agree. I do agree that there's probably a couple of people out there. There's some people out there for whom they may be able to continue as the same, but it's not making your relationship better. That is fucking bollocks.
Well, it's removing trust.
Yeah, just destroying trust.
There is an agreement that neither of you are going to do that, and one of them people has done it.
Unless, so we spoke to James Bailey on the podcast, very interesting guy, polyamorous person, recently in a monogamous relationship, but just said at the start, look, I'm tempted by other women, and this is the case. So if I'm gonna have sex with someone, I'll let you know, but this is it, and you can as well. But let's just discuss it.
Is that cheating?
I suppose it's not, because they've set out the terms to begin with, haven't they?
Because cheating is really just defined as not adhering to the terms of the arrangement.
The terms need to be put in advance, and that's a great point that we've missed off there. The fact that where do you draw the line with what is and isn't cheating? And I recently had a discussion with someone who is regularly on a morning TV show, and she had been on saying that a man liking other women's photos on Instagram counts as cheating. And I was like, fair enough, I don't agree. Because you are implying a goal out of that. You're implying a particular desire that he's trying to achieve. By that same argument,
it says more about her than it does about the men.
To a degree, but the same argument would be that your man who's looking at another woman in a bar is exactly the same, because that's pretty much the same thing. But the very furry grey line of exactly what is and isn't cheating, like, is holding hands cheating? Is having a meaningful conversation with someone cheating? Don't hold hands.
We're cheating.
You are cheating.
On
That's
who
true.
though? On Chris, because he told us not to.
Oh yeah.
You've broken the terms. Yeah, like, where does the line get drawn for cheating? But I think definitely, should you split up with someone when you find out that you've been cheated on? I guess that's a very individual question.
Depends how much it matters to you, I suppose.
Well, so if the relationship matters more, should you?
As in, like, it depends how much the specific instance of cheating matters.
Okay.
We read the comments of this stuff, and I'd be really interested if someone could comment if you've ever been in a relationship where someone's cheated and you've stayed together and you were glad that you did, compared to...
And it's improved things.
That would be very surprising.
Because I did. I stayed with a girlfriend after she cheated on me, and it was such a mistake. I was just like, why did I do that in the first place? But it's just because I was too clingy, I suppose. And looking back, it was like, if I'd just taken that as because it's already late stage. By the time someone cheats, the relationship's already broken. By the time
it's an alarm going off, isn't it? It's not the problem.
It's a lagging alarm as well, isn't it? It's like, it's so far after.
How much life did you lose?
Like 6 months.
So it's a significant proportion of your existence so far.
I mean, it wasn't life lost, but yeah, like
but it could have been life spent doing other things, right? Not investing your time in someone else who didn't deserve it.
That's true.
More time in Jasmine Pool holding your breath.
You could have done, exactly. You could have got thrown out. Could have got thrown out 6 months early.
Imagine the size of my carotid arteries there. It'd be like that.
Massive. So I think certainly one thing in terms of like when to finish a relationship, the presiding rule that I've realized over the last few years is that if you are unhappy in a relationship and you want to finish it, and you're certain that you want to finish it, you should finish it right now. And the reason for that is that not only are you wasting your own life, but you're wasting someone else's as well.
It's respect for yourself and for the other person, isn't it?
Like, if you know that it's not going anywhere and you can't pluck up the courage to do it yourself, think about the fact that you're wasting the other person's life too. And I mean, if you need more motivation than that, I'm afraid I can't give it to you.
What are the big objections to doing that? So
fear,
difficult conversation, fear that you're making the wrong decision, fear that you'll only realise that you're making the wrong decision. That you're only realising that you made the wrong decision later down the line. Because I think, like, any big decision, the fear is, I'm going to do this and I'll regret it. Because if you knew you were right, it wouldn't be a difficult decision. It'd be like, oh, this is a shit conversation,
I see,
but I need to do it. It's how do I know? Because it's bad now. I've had some bad experiences. I'm not sure it's going anywhere. I'm going to have this awful conversation, but I might see him or her with someone else in 6 months' time and think, So it's like, how do you?
That's just prolonging the pain, isn't it?
It is. So it's like, I'm going to hold on to something to avoid that potential future pain or discomfort.
I'm going to cause myself 6 months of mild discomfort and pain rather than a short shot.
I've made it last a long time. I've
dragged out the
I've known that a relationship has been over for a very, very long time, and then the relationship being over period has lasted longer than the relationship not being over period. And I mean, like, it's just...
Then by force of momentum, and you're just like, oh...
Well, this is the new re-regulated relationship, which is constant kind of unhappiness and disagreements and arguments and resentment from you, which destroys anything beautiful that you did once have with that person as well. Like, the way that it works with club nights, if we have a license that goes until 5 a.m, but the club night's waning at 3, we close at 3. Like, we don't let it fizzle out until 5 a.m, because if that happens, the few people that are left at 5 a.m. say, oh yeah, were you at Voodoo the other night? It was, when we left, it was really shit and dead.
Really? That's so interesting. You do it with club nights as well. So it's a fluid endpoint. You just say, right, everyone, like, it's getting a bit rubbish now. Like,
finish on a high. Finish on a high.
It's getting a bit rubbish. I think it'll probably get a bit rubbish in 20 minutes, so I'm going to preempt it.
They say you should do that. Well, like, Juji Mufu does that with training, with like tumbling specific training, where he's like, when you start to feel good, stop the session.
To be honest, I've had it with training of, like, I hit PB, and I'm like, I'm unstoppable, and then I fall off a cliff.
Yeah. And
it's like, if only I just thought, you know what?
End on a high. Yeah. People are starting to leave the club. Let's just...
I think one of the reasons why... So I'm only just realised this recently. I'm a very empathetic person, and I think that plays into... The fact that I'm empathetic is also played on top of the fact that I don't like upsetting people. And I think one of the other reasons why I, in the past, struggled to break up with people was potentially a lack of self-worth. That I was like, well, fucking hell, even though I might not be happy with this person, at least I've got someone. And I'm maybe not worthy of someone else, or maybe I'm not going to get someone who's as good. And then there's so much momentum and familiarity and just level of comfort.
Yeah.
Like, all of these things, it's no surprise that finishing relationships are messy.
Especially once you're in a point where, like, the relationship maybe has other things associated with it, like where you live, or shared possessions, or
pets,
family, pets, whatever, kids. Like, you're not just ending your relationship, you're completely changing your life.
Yeah.
So the cost of
massive
moving things around is large.
Massive.
And actually, that's one of the biggest determinants of a depressive episode, is a shift in your social, in your life, in your circumstance. Not necessarily a positive or a negative one. So even if the ending of the relationship is classed as a positive shift in your life, because it's a big move, something like getting married, moving house, any of those things, if you have 2 or 3 of those in one go, your likelihood of depression goes up by quite a lot for that episode. So it's, I suppose your brain knows that that's a big knock. And so you end up holding it off and just thinking, let's just keep the status quo.
Yeah, better the devil you know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, in terms of advice for if you need to, I mean, we haven't even got onto this before, and a girl on Twitter's already ended a relationship, which fucking bravo. But the main thing I want people to take away from this section is, like, if you know that it's not going anywhere and you're certain of it, then firmly and compassionately tell the person that you're with that it's over. Sit them down. Don't do over text. Like, if it's serious, like if you've been together 2 months, then fucking, like, do a Snapchat them. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, I mean, send a fucking
Insta story.
Flare.
Swipe up.
Insta story. Yeah, swipe up to end this relationship.
Linktree.
I've got a message for you. Find it. Swipe out what it is.
Yeah. So,
Linktree.
But yeah, definitely, if you know that it's over, then firmly and compassionately tell the person that this can't go on anymore, and they'll want the reasons and they'll want all the rest of it. In that scenario, I think it's best again to tell them the truth. I'm on this kind of truth vibe at the moment, and we will do an episode on why truth is a superpower at some point in the future. But the least that you can do for someone when you're about to end a relationship with them is give them the metrics by which they can improve themselves for the next relationship.
I like that a lot. So you when you're giving them that truth, it's because it's doing them a favor. But I think the temptation is either to not think through the delivery, and I've got a story associated with that, or if you're so bitter about it that it ends up just coming across as like a pressure cooker and you just unload onto them. When I was 17, 18, I broke up with a girl who I ended up in like a 6 to 7 month relationship with, just because I was basically too passive just in general in my life. And so it was the equivalent of someone like grabbing me and putting me in the sack, and then it's like, right, that's it, you're in a relationship, you're my boyfriend now for 7 months. And then slowly I was like, hang on, like I've had no choice in this. So like I'm actually not really interested in this girl, and so
this sounds like one of those cold call people that knock on the door of OAPs, and before they know it, they've got a £300 a month direct debit.
Yeah, I had all my double glazing done. I signed up for 3 insurances. I had solar panel. I had a Google Home. I didn't know how to use it.
Yep.
So eventually, I was like, right, I'm gonna have to just, in my much further along the autism spectrum than I am now, brain. I thought, what's the best way to I know. Okay, this sounds good, right? Took her aside just before she got her bus, and I said,
At the bus stop,
I've not heard this story before.
Hang on. Sorry. Can you look straight down the pipe for me, please, and do it?
Mm-hmm.
Big fluffy one.
Yeah.
Big fluffy one.
I said, Rosie, I'm not attracted to you. And I thought, it's not clear enough. At all. And then I just left it, and she kind of looked at me and started crying, and I was like, okay, bye. And then so I left. Because of that pulling aside, she missed her bus. She had to wait 40 minutes, and I walked away thinking, think I did that smoothly? Think I let her down gently there? And then realised later on that absolutely not. Saw her 3 years later, she was still very upset about it. And rightfully so. That was a terrible delivery on all counts, but like,
okay, so
the point was like there was exactly as you said, like during the whole 6 months, too passive, not respecting myself or my time or her time, especially her time, because she's the one who's putting herself on the line. She's the one making herself vulnerable in that situation, really, because it's up to me to reject her or not. If someone pursues somebody, it's not a normal thing for that just to be like, oh, okay, I'm
not doing it on a whim.
Yeah. So, exactly as you said, it's
bizarrely, it's so compassionate to tell someone who likes you more than you like them that the relationship's over, because you know that as the relationship continues, all that you're suffering with is an increase in irritation and perhaps a waste of time. Whereas what that person is doing is entrenching themselves further into an investment in another person who doesn't care about them. And the longer that you allow that to go on, the more painful it's going to be when they decide, when it finally ends. And another thing as well is that I think a lot of cheating probably occurs, it certainly has done for me in the past, due to me not pulling the trigger on that. So it's like, if I decided to say that the relationship was over when I was prepared, when I knew it was over, I would have cheated less than half the number of times that I have done. So much of it has occurred after then. So that, I mean, how many different ways do I want to be disingenuous to someone who's putting that, like, giving me their time?
The trouble is, though, how do you know? Ooh, you hear that? Was my back cracking? That's never happened before. How do you know when you're in that situation? Because you arrive at this point, like you're not sat there with your war map out thinking like, I'm going to do this next.
We'll take Russia tomorrow.
Like, it's you've got this sort of constant feeling building up of I'm not necessarily that happy, but like, maybe things will recover. I don't want them to be in a relationship with someone else. I'll just keep things.
Have we got a process?
Everything looks very deliberate and thought through with hindsight, doesn't it? But actually, at the time, you just like, oh god.
Well, I mean, it's the same question as when do you stop being young and start being old?
Yeah.
Like, it's a gradual process, and at one point you wake up and you're old, and at one point you wake up and you're unhappy. The same thing occurs for that.
Because there is also this potentially insidious situation where you are 20 and you're in a relationship with someone, and because of these beliefs that you have where you think like, I should be like, my sex life should be like this, my personal life should be like this, our social life should be like that, you end the relationship, and then 7, 8, 10 relationships down the line you're like, shit, like should have kept a hold on that relationship. So like
because of your ideals of what you think a relationship should be.
So it's like you're in this position with someone, and actually they match a lot of what you would really like about someone for a long-term partner, but you can't see that at the time because you're searching for these ideals that you eventually realize when you're 40 don't exist, for example.
But just from Insta couples that seem like that,
Yeah. So
that's doing the work on yourself before you try to make a relationship work. This is why introspective work and self-inquiry and all these sort of things, uncovering your own cognitive biases, are so important. If you don't know what you want, you can't. How the fuck do you expect the other person to know? But yeah, I unfortunately, for most of the stuff that we've had so far, we've been able to give a semi-autistic framework to things that's like a set of guidelines. This area of breaking up with someone, the devil's in the details, and the grey area of when is enough, it is a choice which can only be made by you and the other person. And I think that the only thing that you can do is, once you've made the commitment, stick to it. Don't leave the other person with any lingering sense of hope or potential that it's going to continue, or things may get better in the future, or that you just want a break, or whatever it is.
We all know we all got a mate who's like been on and off with their girlfriend for the last 10 years, and they're both
Never
just
works.
cut up about it, and it's
No.
I think I do have a framework.
Laid on us. Is it a spreadsheet?
It's not.
Oh.
I can make it a spreadsheet. But
Brilliant.
that'll be
Thank you.
an episode.
It's subscription.
So, I think you first have to think. So it's in exactly the same way as like how you would approach low carb dieting. So like
I can't wait to hear you compare how to break up with someone to how to approach a low carb diet.
So it's exactly the same. So there are people who are fine never having carbohydrate again in their life. Okay, I'm not one of those people. So when I choose a diet approach, and when I give my clients diet approaches, one of the first questions is like, can you honestly see yourself sticking to this in a year, 5 years, 10 years? Because if it isn't sustainable at the moment, it's not going to get better. It's only going to get probably more difficult and encounter all these things. So like, if you take the standard relationship, probably taken to the nth degree, like you'll move in together. And that comes with lots of complications. You might get married. That comes with complications. You might have children, family, whatever. All those things are complexities and like a level up, like an extra thing to manage. So you have to right now think, can I imagine this getting to that point? Like, do I want this to get to that point? Is this person actually an enhancement? Do I like spending time with them? Because it definitely should be like a level up enhancement to your life. Like you should feel like a better person. I think that's, for me, fundamental. But then, so if you think there are those things in place and you're unhappy, I would, and I've never done this personally, but like having been in failed relationships and now in a successful one, I think collate what it is that bothers you about the person, sit down with them and say, these are the things that are getting to me. What about me do you not like? Honestly take their list and really, really work on it yourself. And if they aren't receptive to that conversation, then they aren't receptive to making it work anyway, more than likely. Mm-hmm. So like, if you're experiencing problems, chances are they are too. Because I think I was terrible at this when I was younger, of like, this relationship's not going very well. It's all what this person's doing. Like, this is annoying, and you like moan about it with your friends, but you never consider like, I'm likely just as annoying, if not
just
more.
as much of a bastard. Yeah.
So like,
we're much more blind to our own behavior as well.
Of course you are, because it's automatic and ingrained. But yeah, so I think just having, in the same way that, you know, I likened the relationship to like a big business of, you know, like the board of Facebook when it was like the Cambridge Analytica stuff. Like, do they sit and panic and just all cry and make really rash decisions and like
storm out?
Does one of them go over to Snapchat and you know start trying to work to Snapchat? Like, no, they sit down and think like, let's solve this problem. Like we all want this to continue being Facebook. Let's solve this problem. And you've got to have the same approach. And if Mark Zuckerberg goes, this is all too much for me, I'm in here and work at Snapchat, then like Facebook's never going to work.
Yeah, it's fucked.
So
I think that's a good way. That's a good way to look at it. And I wonder how many people would be prepared to write down the list and then take a list.
You don't have to write it down.
Well, okay,
But
to
present it to them.
To present a list of the things that are causing problems.
So if you aren't willing to do that, get out of the relationship. Like there is no point being in a relationship with.
If you're not prepared to do what you need to do to make it work, then pull the trigger.
And that advice is the same for like, I want to start my own business. I want to get into shape. Like all of those things have an associated level of work, and it's not. Do I want the outcome? Like, do I want a really nice relationship? I'm sure you do. Are you willing to do the work required?
Can I tolerate the inputs?
I like the idea that you came up with about projecting forward. Like this person that I'm with now, where am I at in 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? And can I imagine it working with them like that?
Yep.
Because from there, if the answer is yes, sweet, you
Great.
can do some refining
You're
or
on the
whatever.
right path.
Yeah.
Yep.
If the answer is no, you have two choices. Well, you have three, but the third one's shite. The first choice is that you try and improve whatever the situation is. To go back to the rocket trajectory analysis, like you and this person are on slightly different courses and you're beginning to diverge. As time continues, that divergence is going to get worse. You can try and course correct.
Yeah.
That's one thing.
Yeah.
You can pull the ejector seat and get out of it. Or the third one is to allow the courses to continue to diverge. And over time, the small issues will become bigger. And by the time that you've reached the moon, you're 100,000 miles apart.
So I would say in that situation, because that it's just like a second-hand car market, unfortunately.
Yeah.
You should
God, Johnny.
pull the ejector
There's
seat.
people that keep
offensive,
sending me messages saying, do you think that Winston Churchill was a fascist? And I don't know what they mean.
You must have mentioned.
I didn't mention Winston. I think it's a reference to Jordan Peterson. I don't know. However, if you are one of those people who's sending me a message saying that Winston Churchill's a fascist, you are 54 minutes and 30 seconds into my YouTube watch time. So thank you very much for your money through YouTube monetization.
It's true, actually. You are one of these people that goes on the internet and looks for things to be offended by and then gets outraged about it. I'm going to subscribe and watch more of it so that I can be more offended. It's like, well, no one's forcing you to watch this. You're
Bring it on, buddy. I just want your watch time.
We had a comment on a video the other day of a guy saying the video was boring. I was like, mate,
We had
it's
someone say,
entirely
I
voluntary
was
to
so
watch the
upset
video.
by this that I watched it again.
Oh, God, yeah.
It was my sleeping on the floor video had someone outraged saying, forget sleeping on the floor. It's putting meat into your body and animals, animal products.
Very unwell.
And then he
person.
did another comment which said, I was so outraged by this, I had to watch it twice.
Yeah, you're like, there
Thanks,
was no
mate.
mention of animal products or
Where
meat.
are your videos on?
Oh, yeah, you don't have any. I mean, the worst
Of
thing.
course.
Yes, the worst thing that could happen would be for you to share your opinion with the 13 people that follow you on Instagram.
To make
because
yourself vulnerable to 13
I would
people.
be really
Or
upset.
the level beyond that is when people see an ad on Facebook and share it and then say something aggressive to their like
Johnny's just like, yes.
30 friends. I'm like, tick.
Edge
Thank you.
Yeah. So
What
moving
was saying? I had a point I was going to make.
the rocket diverging.
Oh yeah, second-hand car market, pull the ejector seat, because like unless of course you're getting something out of that relationship outside, like maybe you don't want to be in a relationship with someone long term, in which case fine. But
Several
if you
short-term
do,
companionships.
like let's say to make it very crude, let's say the person that one of the 50 people who maybe would be perfect for you is going to meet someone in 3 weeks time, and you never meet them because you're in this relationship that you're kind of holding on to, even though you know it's not working. So,
and the
So you
same.
shut yourself off to...
The crazy thing is, what we're talking about here, we keep coming back to it. The effects are to the power of 2 with everything. Everything is squared.
Yeah.
So it's like, you are in a relationship which you're currently unhappy in. You could meet someone in 3 weeks' time that would be perfect for you, but you can't commit to them because you're in a relationship. And the same is true of the other person as well.
absolutely.
And if you don't want them to meet someone else, then that, because of some kind of bitterness or resentment, then that's a toxic
That's just
situation.
that's just a
selfish.
fucking juvenile, like...
Like, not only are you ruining your situation, but you're just being selfish to the other person for the sake of
You can fuck up
protect you.
Like, you can fuck up your life. You can happily fuck up your life, but messing up someone else's, and this is... So for me, like, I'm perfectly happy suffering the consequences of my own actions and my own mistakes within relationships, which have been numerous in the past. But one of the things that I really struggled to deal with was the upset that I'd caused my partner. Like that is
And that sits with you for a long time. No?
Man, it's a tough pill to swallow. I had to do an awful lot of reflection and mindfulness to get over some of the things that I've done. And it's like, it sounds like I've fucking killed someone. I haven't. But again, if you are someone who's empathetic, you're in this slightly vicious circle of not wanting to hurt the other person because you don't want to hurt them, so you don't pull the trigger on it. And then when you do end up doing it and hurting them, then you've got all of this extra baggage of the fact that you dragged it out.
Oh, absolutely. And I've done that myself as well. And, after I was cheated on, I wasn't consciously aware of it at the time, that I wasn't able to fully be present with them. And I was in this kind of really begrudging 6 months with them afterwards. And I thought, well, why have I done this? Like, why didn't I just... She would have been happier. Obviously, she wouldn't have been happy in the short term. She would have been very upset because she'd feel like, oh, I've done this and I've caused this to happen. But after a month or so, you'd calibrate.
You level out, man. Okay. And that's another thing.
Nintendo DS.
Yeah. Here's another absolute.
I'll tell the story in a second.
Absolute truism of breaking up with someone. I know that it feels like either your world or their world are going to collapse. If the other person's dependent on you, you're going to think, fuck, I'm going to destroy them. They're never going to get over it. Or if you feel like you are somehow dependent on them, but you're unhappy, or the relationship's abusive, or you know it's not going anywhere, you feel like the microcosm of time that you're in right now is all that there will ever be. Mm-hmm. And you can't imagine ever being happy outside of it. But we are built to adapt as human beings. We literally adapt. That's the only reason that we've been good. We're not as strong or as fast or as anything else. We're a bit cleverer. We can work together and we can adapt to changing situations. Like,
you've seen that thing about the 6 month, if someone wins the lottery or becomes disabled, like paralyzed from the legs down or something, after 6 months, their subjective ratings of happiness are
the same,
roughly the same, which is absolutely insane. I find that so hard to believe.
The breaking up thing, like, if everyone's just trying to be happy, and an ending relationship is actually like a step in the right direction towards that ultimate goal, because it was more than likely it was never going to happen in that situation anyway.
You were unhappy, and you should view it as an opportunity. I know it doesn't feel like one, but you should view it as an opportunity. So the final bit, which is probably the most difficult, we've left the big boss for last, is how do you get over someone? Okay,
so first thing is realize that no matter how tactfully you do it, even if you're really, really good about it, and you take them to the side at the bus stop and you deliver a perfectly crafted line about the fact that you're not attracted to them
at all,
you will still be the villain among their friends, among their family, and there's no way around that. I think even if you were well liked, and that's not necessarily personal, obviously the friends of the ex are going to want to support them, and as a result demonize you in the stories and everything else. And I think just not to get involved and just to let them do that and thrash it out themselves.
That's
step one.
That's the presumption that you are the breakup protagonist.
Breaker-upper, yeah.
Breaker-upper.
The breaker.
Yeah. What if you are the broken?
If you're the broken.
Because this is the scenario I think that most people fear, which is that they care for someone and that one day they wake up and that this person says, I don't feel the same about you anymore. There's someone else. This needs to finish. And
because in some cases, like, oh, thank God. I mean, like, oh, I'm so upset.
So this is my kind of the main point that I think guides my particular emotions in these situations, and that pride in a relationship is such an overriding, overbearing, visceral, stomach-punching feeling. And it, for me...
The loss of pride.
It's, that you have this ego and it's so fucking fragile, and that there's been situations that I've been in with girls where I haven't wanted them anymore. I don't want them. I'm not bothered about them. And I don't even mind if they're with someone else. Like, I'm not attracted to them. It doesn't matter.
At all.
But I still don't want them to say to me that they don't want me. Mm-hmm. It's like, I don't want you, but I don't want you to not want me. Like, you're the dirty penny that's at the bottom of my bag, but you still got to fucking stay in my bag. And it's such a juvenile, ridiculous way to feel. And I think that the flipping of that power, like whether or not you don't care or whether you do care, the fact that it's a comment on you're not enough. It's when someone splits up with you, you're not enough for me. You're not worthy of my time as much as someone else is. You're potentially not even as worthy of my time as no one is. Like it's unsurprising that breakups hurt as badly as they do.
Because we take it personally when in reality it probably isn't. It's probably like, because when you break up with someone, you think it's because of the other person, but it's because of your feelings and thoughts, and it may even be like stuff with you rather than the stuff with the other person. So,
yeah, it's obviously the other person has a big impact,
of course,
but there 100% there will be numerous relationships that are ended because someone feels that they've got some stuff to work on. They're like, look, like, fuck man, like I'm just not in the right place for it at the moment. And they may be being so virtuous as to say, I can't give you what you need. I'm going to allow you to be happy with someone else. And that really is a very compassionate thing to say. But fuck, like if you hear that get delivered to you, you're just like...
Well, it's dealing with difficult news, isn't it? It's how do you take something and that is shifting the rest of your life that you didn't want and try and make the best of it.
Yeah.
And I think it's it's not that different to, well, although there is an end point in sight, I suppose. Like if you're told that you have a disease, cancer or something that is like, this is, immediately like, this is going to affect my life. I didn't want this to happen. You immediately catastrophize and think it's the worst thing possible. If all you can do is control like what I'm going to do about it and how I perceive it, then trying to frame this as like, this relationship has ended, but it's the start of something new. I can go find someone else.
Yeah.
Actions of like, this is the end of this chapter in my life. I'm going to make myself even better. I'm going to work on this aspect of my life, whatever. Like if there are two people and both people are in a relationship or they're dumped or they're cheated on, and one person frames it really positively and just really doubles down on them and the rest of their life, and the other person spends 6 months grieving over the loss of the
wistfully
relationship.
Thinking about
Both of them are in the same scenario. Like neither of their actions have changed the outcome.
Yep.
But one person's
That's a good point.
really good.
One person treats it as a crisis and the other opportunity.
And you can, it's the stoicism thing of like, that's all you can control is thoughts and actions. Like
So
the breakup's the breakup.
one of those ways to respond is the kind of instant grasping for looking for someone else. Often someone that's not really well suited, but they're just there,
The next
just
thing.
available.
Yeah.
And that is probably the biggest insult that you can give to that person, because without them knowing, they're just a filler, like a spare.
You're a substitute that's come off the bench because the goalie's injured himself. So in terms of effective strategies for getting over people, I've got some fairly, I guess, staunch rules with regards to the way that I have done it in the past. I think that trying to remain friends with your ex within, if it's been a significantly long relationship, i.e. one that's probably over a year, I think that you should aim to cut contact with them. That is everything. That is delete the number, delete the photos, remove them, block them on all social media, remove their phone number for 6 months. And I think that the reason for that is that the what are you laughing at?
So I know someone that did that, and they ended up receiving an email to their work account or something that was like the last
bastion of getting through. Man, there's this hilarious photo, Dean may be able to find it, of a girlfriend had split up with a boyfriend at university, and the only way that he'd been able to contact her had been by depositing money into a bank account with a payment reference.
Really?
Nice.
That had a message in it.
What should you put as the amount value though?
Well, he put like 1p, but he did like 10.
Oh,
So it was like a word per one.
But like points for creativity.
Yeah.
Fucking clever that. I'd take him back.
You're like, oh,
That
God.
guy's going to do well.
I'd take him back. Yeah, no. Maybe not in relationships, but
in something.
Silicon Valley.
I still love 4p. Yes.
Yes.
He's been presented with a problem, hasn't he? Sat there like, how can
But then
I
what if your
contact
bank's like, minimum transfer is £5? You're like,
Fuck, this is
this is
20 quid
gonna be
now, yeah.
expensive.
So yeah, block and delete everything. You don't want to be reminded of them. All of the stuff that they've got you, give it back to them, give it to the charity shop, put it in the bin, put it in the attic, do whatever you need to. And then
Facebook Marketplace.
Marketplace. Oh, it's a nightmare. And then I think you need to spend time with friends.
Yeah.
Alain de Botton, I will put a link to how to get, a lot of this is derived from Alain de Botton from the School of Life's work, how to get over someone. The video is fantastic. And I think first and foremost, you need to accept the fact that the relationship is over. You need to draw a very, very strong line under it. And once you've accepted the fact that it's over, you can then begin to look forward as opposed to reminiscing and looking back. We need something to fill the time that our thoughts have to manifest. And if you can block off the fact of looking that way, you can start to look that way. You need to spend some time around friends. I think being on your own. There's some time on your own that maybe for reflection and such like, but like, call on your friends. If you message your friends, a lot of people feel like, oh, I've got no one to turn to. I don't have any friends, this, that, and the other. Like, if there's ever been times where I've been feeling like down or whatever, and I've messaged you guys and been like, man, having a little bit of a down day, within half an hour, like I've got a response. It's like if you call for help.
And we're terrible with text.
And you're shite. Yeah. Like,
it's like you get an email with the subject line urgent. Like, you'll open the email, won't you?
Yeah. Doesn't matter what's happening. A fire's happening, but you still open the email.
Open the email.
Yeah, exactly. Urgent. There is a fire in your... But yeah, fucking no!
Yes, but this is an urgent email.
Yeah.
That's why I'm checking my emails.
Bloody hell. So, yeah, like, spend some time with your friends, I think. Like, go and do something which distracts you from the situation. You only have so much cognitive capacity. Like, if you have to go and play fucking darts or go crazy golf or go to the cinema or something, there will be brief periods where you're not thinking about the breakup. There has to be. Like, as the person at the counter says, oh, have you got £10.50? Like, as you're counting the £10.50 out, I know this sounds very granular, but in some of these situations...
I bought her a teddy bear that was £10.50. the cashier's mum was called that. And
yeah, I get that. But, you know, there's small periods, little oases of a cognitive break from what you have been feeling and what you're now feeling.
Rather than sat in the house just letting it completely...
Overwhelm.
It'll be the same
Where's the overwhelm?
The same list of things that make you forget to check your emails or check your phone.
Yeah.
Like, go do those. Like, go drive a Lamborghini round a track.
Yeah.
Like, I guarantee you'll not be thinking about your previous
sat there
life.
just crying.
Fucking terrified. Yeah, exactly.
Like, trying to not spin $100,000 car around a corner. You're like, you'd be thinking about just that.
Yeah, and I think as well, Alain de Botton's got this thing, I'm not too sure.
Go and jump in the North Sea.
Oh, God, yeah. Well, I mean, what if you drown?
Yeah.
Actually, we cannot say to people who've just been in a terrible breakup to go jump in the North Sea.
Scrap that. Do not
Dean.
jump in the North Sea. Have a cold shower.
Have a cold shower, yeah. Go to Yusef's house.
Yeah, just go see Yusef.
Can't have warm showers in his house. I think...
Hot toilet.
Hot toilet. I've got a hot toilet. Someone plumbed the fucking hot water into
Chris
the toilet.
just uses a kettle for a toilet.
I do. I just sit on a kettle.
Literally.
So yeah, I think Alain de Botton's got this idea where he says that you should bore yourself, or one of the opportunities is to bore yourself back into doing things. So he says allow yourself as many nights as you want that you cry into a tub of ice cream and watch as many romantic comedies with your friend until you're literally like, I am fucking sick of myself. And you're like, okay, I'll motivate myself out of that. I think personally for me, I'm a lot more idiosyncratic than that. So for me, what I would try and do is instantiate some things that I know are good for me. Like, I still think that I allow myself to, I allow the thought loops to bore themselves out of existence. And like, I have been in this particular loop 5,000 times before. I do not need to replay it again. I'm less, because there's a lot of psychosocial factors on crying into a tub of ice cream whilst watching a dark screen.
Yeah, I'm not sure how I feel about that advice, because you see people, especially if they've got a slightly anancastic personality, and they'll just absolutely
what's that word,
like slightly obsessional personality, and
anancastic.
Yeah, so like if they're just like, they start getting some enjoyment from doing the ice cream and watch it, and then that becomes
that's their life now.
And then they say like, you break a habit once and that's a mistake. Break a habit twice and that's a new habit. You've created something new, and suddenly you're just going down.
I hate that that's the case.
I know, it's such a like. Oh.
Well, I did a podcast earlier on today where I talked about how it, after a while of instantiating daily routines and habits, it's a lot, and this is both good and bad, unfortunately. After a while, it's a lot easier to do them than to not do them. And that works on both sides.
Yeah.
Like for me to not meditate and not journal now, I'd be like,
Feels a bit
I'd feel like I was walking with one shoe on and one shoe off for the rest of the day.
Horrible.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's the fact that it's for the rest of the day. That's the real stinker.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's fucked.
'Cause then you miss your morning routine, and before you know it, it's 3 months later, and you forgot to get dressed that morning. And
Always does. I still feel off for most of the day if I've not meditated. I haven't today, and there's a constant feeling.
You walked in backwards through the door earlier on, didn't you?
Just with one shoe on.
Yeah, with one shoe on.
Terrible.
There's advice in Wave the Superior Man that currently reading, thanks to you two.
Oh, great! You're reading it as well.
Yeah. Thought I was supposed
Audiobook.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Great book. David Dada.
He talks about like when you're in pain or when you're experiencing something, to like stand with your shoulders back and like just feel it and really like focus on just that. So like there is an argument to say that it's really painful, it's really shit, but just like
take it head on.
Yeah,
man, it's
just sit with it.
Here's something to meditate on. Like, your life is not lived from the comfort of your couch. Like, when you look back on your life in 60, 70 years' time, hopefully, you don't want to think that you didn't have any experiences.
I wish I watched more Netflix.
Yeah, like, another thing to consider is that whatever you're feeling right now, it could be 10 out of 10 pain globally across your entire body, and you could have lost everything. But in 6 months' time, that will just be a memory. Like, nothing is going to last forever, and that's one of the few things that you know. So you're like, right, okay, I'm feeling something now. I recently did a podcast, an amazing podcast, with Alex Hutchinson, who wrote a book called Endure. And in this, what he does is he discusses the different contributing factors to what makes an endurance athlete successful. And what he says is that very, very good endurance athletes are able to mindfully distinguish between the different elements of discomfort within the body. So it's not just overwhelm. It's not pain and discomfort. He talks about it like a glass of wine. So he says, well, there's an undertone of lactic burn. I'm getting some notes of breathlessness and a high heart rate. There's a scent of heat and discomfort in my head. There's a ringing in my ear. There's a blindness on the side of my eyes. And as opposed to seeing the emotions or feeling the emotions as a single nebulous, insurmountable problem, what you actually feel them for are their component parts. And I think that's what you're talking about there. Yeah. It's sitting with the discomfort. It's like, what am I feeling? Okay, so I've got the stomach. I can feel the heat rising in my chest. Like, break it down, and you can break open what it is that sensations.
In Sam Harris's like lessons talks about like we all have this feeling that at some point that like pain or a sensation or something is absolutely unbearable. I'll not be able to continue. But like logically, right now and a moment ago and 2 moments ago and 3 moments ago, you were just experiencing that and it was fine. So there's nothing different about
it's
it.
It's about it.
So I go and do what's called a Widowmaker, which is 20 reps on back squat with your 10 rep max. And that's the only time I could really distinctly remember, and it happened every time, this decoupling from like, I am in this experience, but there's a moment of like, you're always just watching yourself doing it.
That sounds impossible, by the way. You keep it on your back until you've done 10, then you take 3 or 5 deep breaths, and you do another rep, and you just, it is possible.
Horrendous.
So the equivalent that Alex used in the podcast was, I think it's 5 by 500 meter sprints. Oh. So you go as hard as you can. You run 500 meters. You have a 1 minute rest. You run again, and then once you've finished, you've done your 5th rep, and you're on the floor dying and panting. You'll be in a mega lactate threshold in that particular workout as well. Your coach comes over and says you need to do one more. And you're like, I could, and you've given it everything on that 5th round. You've given it absolutely everything that you've got. But if you need to get up and you need to go again, you find that you can go again, and you could go again after that.
I always find it quite comforting when I'm training that, like, I don't need, like, not being able to do it. I don't need to worry about that. Like, my body will take care of that. Like, if the 20 rep squats, like, eventually I'll just collapse. So I don't, like, that's taken care of. All I need to do is
relaxing.
Continue.
Eventually, I'll just collapse with 180 kilos on my back.
Because you're thinking, like, because there's almost this, like, I decide when I give up. It's like, well, you don't. You don't have to.
Your body will take care of that.
And you're going to be fascinated by the podcast I did with Alex. It's unbelievable the way. And the main thing, I'm not going to give too much of a spoiler away, but the key to everything, he says, in endurance and in mentality within sport is RPE.
Is it?
Everything is rate of perceived exertion. Everything.
It's different with things that you're actively doing to yourself, I suppose, because with grief, with breakups, and it is grief, it's happening to you. But this sense of, so Shinzen Young says suffering equals pain times resistance. And
Is that like the holding onto the tennis ball thing?
Probably, yeah. So like the amount of resisting it happening to you, I suppose, like you're holding on to something there, but if it's something happening to you, the more you're like, oh no, if you actually just, yeah, as you said, dial down on what are the specific sensations that I'm feeling, you realize that actually they're a lot smaller. They're just like little atoms, and it's you're just seeing this big mass that you're assuming is huge. You realize that they're just like bubbles and they're vacuous inside. And Sam Harris as well talks about like the sensation in his knee while meditating for a long time and how it becomes this searing pain. But then once he kind of zones in on it, he's like, actually, I can't distinguish if it's ecstasy or pain. It's just an intense sensation. And
I know this. I mean, we are telling people who are heartbroken that they need to sit with their discomfort.
You absolutely do.
But yes, they do.
It is the truth. It is the truth. It's a learning experience, and I mean,
grief will come out in some way.
So here's a really nice thing.
Enjoy it.
Here's a really nice thing to think about. A nice thing to think about if you are going through a breakup or have done or are going to, like, what better of a way to take ownership of something painful than to use it for growth? Do you know what I mean? Like, this is a situation which would crush a lot of people, may even crush me. It feels that there's discomfort, and somehow on the other side of this, I've drawn a profit or a positive. I mean, fuck. Like, there you go. That's how to complete. That is how to complete getting over someone. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. We will be back.
Anytime.
We will be back. Well, I know we're about to do another one, but no one knows. We will be back with Relationships 104, which is the long-awaited Instagram funnel.
Is it?
Oh my goodness.
Ready thyselves.
For the Instagram funnel.
It's going to be good.
Please do not forget to press subscribe. If you've enjoyed the episode, share it with a friend. It would make us very, very happy indeed. Links to some of the further reading, some of the other articles that we've mentioned will be in the show notes below. Press the share button. Press it now. Please press it now.
Okay. Bye then.
Okay, bye then.